Hello and welcome. My name is Mike Kulwiec, and I'm the founder of TriVantage and the Champion Dentist Coaching and Practice Growth Program. If you're a practice owner, you may be working harder than ever just to maintain your current revenue. Maybe you are thinking to grow, you need to spend more on marketing, hire more staff, or extend your clinical hours. But what if I told you that you are likely leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table every year, not because you need more patients, but because your current systems are leaking revenue at every stage? Today, I'm going to introduce you to what I call the practice multiplier. We're going to look at the math behind the average dental practice, and I'm going to show you how making five very small, highly achievable improvements to your systems can increase your new patient revenue by over 200%. That's right, over 200%. Let's get started. The traditional advice for practice growth, well, it can be exhausting. Run more ads, work more hours, see more patients. It's a recipe for burnout. If you pour more money into marketing when your internal systems aren't optimized, well, that's like pouring water into a leaky bucket. You might get a little more water at the bottom, but you're wasting a fortune in the process. The better way, the path to less stress, maximum success, is to fix the leaks first. When you do that, you don't need to work harder. Your systems work harder for you. This is the practice multiplier. It's a way of looking at your practice not as a single entity, but as a five-stage pipeline. It starts with an inbound phone call, which hopefully turns into an answered call, then a booked appointment, then a patient who actually shows up, accepts a treatment, and finally completes that treatment. At every single one of these stages, there's a drop-off. Some drop-off is natural, but in the average practice, the drop-off is severe. Your hidden revenue is trapped in those gaps. Now, to prove this, we aren't going to use made-up numbers. We've compiled data from major industry sources, including the Henry Schein One benchmark study, Sika Software, and the Levin Group, to build a profile of the mathematically average U.S. general dental practice. Let's compare that to where you are. Let's look at the baseline. The average practice receives about 60 inbound new patient calls a month. They average 67%. They book half of those. They have an 18% new patient no-show rate. When the patient sits in the chair, the doctor diagnoses an average of $1,750 in care. The patient accepts 40% of that on average and ultimately completes 42% of what they accepted. The result? Well, the average practice generates about $130,000 a year in new patient revenue. It sounds okay until you see what they are losing. Let's look closely at the front desk, the first stage of the pipeline. Right off the bat, 1/3 of your prospective patients are going to voicemail because the phone isn't answered. Of the 67% of calls that are never answered, half of those calls never book an appointment. And of the people who do book, nearly 1 in 5 never show up. Three separate leaks. Each one seems small on its own, but combined, they eliminate more than half of your potential new patients before they ever meet you. Why does this happen? Because we forget that the telephone is the first moment of truth. Prospective patients may research your practice online or be referred by a patient, but they ultimately have to call the practice to ask questions and make an appointment. The telephone is the very first source of either strength or weakness in your revenue cycle. Yet phone skills training is consistently overlooked and undervalued by practice owners. Your front desk team dictates whether your marketing dollars turn into booked appointments or wasted opportunities. You need installed training systems to ensure they succeed. Set them up for success. Now, let's apply some leverage through those systems. What if we don't try to be perfect, but we do try to be good? If we implement an installed phone skills training system, we can raise the answer rate from 67 to 80%. If we introduce a structured booking script, the booking rate goes from 50 to 65%. If we use a simple four-touch automated reminder sequence, the no-show rate for new patients drops from 18 to 10%. Now, look at the bottom line. By fixing those three leaks, the practice goes from seeing 17 new patients a month to 28. That's 11 extra new patients every single month, generated from the exact same 60 phone calls. Zero additional marketing spend. But the pipeline leaks don't stop at the front desk. They continue into the operatory. Even when a new patient sits in the chair, the average practice struggles to get them healthy. The doctor proposes, on average, $1,750 in care. The national acceptance rate is only about 40%. And here's the silent killer. Even when patients say yes, only 42% of that treatment is actually completed. When you compound those numbers, it means that for every $1,750 you diagnose, you're only collecting about $294. You are working incredibly hard to diagnose care that is never delivered. Why are patients saying no or failing to complete treatment? It comes down to communication. So much of case acceptance relates to the performance of your team members at key moments of interaction. Hygienists and dentists are on the front line of clinical care, diagnosis, and communication. But if they aren't trained in effective listening, the patient doesn't feel heard. And without a deep understanding of the patient's specific concerns and desires, patients become resistant to treatment. Clinical diagnosis alone is not enough. You must have high-level communication skills. Again, let's apply leverage through better systems and skills. If we implement a comprehensive exam protocol, the average proposed care value naturally rises to a conservative $2,200. If we train the team on communication skills and structured follow-up, acceptance rate jump from 40 to 60%. And if we assign a treatment coordinator with a strict 2-day follow-up protocol, completion rates rise from 42 to 65%. Now, these are not elite top 1% numbers. These are standard benchmarks for a well-run practice. But look at the impact. Your revenue per patient jumps from $294 to $858, $300 to almost $900. That's a 192% increase in value per patient simply by communicating more effectively and guiding them through the care they already need. This is where the magic happens. This is the power of compounding. When you combine the front desk phone skill improvements, which gave us 11 extra patients, with clinical communication improvements, which tripled the value of each patient, the results are staggering. The average practice today generates about $130,000 in annual new patient revenue. The achievable practice, the one with good structured systems in place, generates over $400,000. That's an additional $280,000 per year, a 215% increase in revenue achieved with no new marketing spend, no additional staff, and no extended hours, just better systems. To recap, we didn't ask you to double your call volume or extend your hours. We pulled 5 levers. Call answer rate up 13 points. Booking rate up 15 points. No-show rate down 8 points. Acceptance rate up 20. Completion rate up 23 points. That's it. But these improvements do not happen by accident, and they don't happen just by telling your team to try harder. They require structured, repeatable systems. That is exactly why we created the Champion Dentist Dental Operating System, or simply stated, DOS. Through DOS, our coaching and profit acceleration program, we don't just tell you what benchmarks to hit. We give you the exact systems to hit them. We install the patient pipeline systems, the case presentation training, the hygiene recare systems, and the leadership framework required to close the gap between average and achievable, going from good to great. Our goal is simple: less stress, maximum success. We aim for significant measurable progress every 90 days with major practice transformation achieved in 12 to 18 months. This is where our approach at the Champion Dentist is fundamentally different from other coaches and consultants. Some consultants will dive into a practice and coach your team on these aspects. Those efforts can create a short-term boost in revenue, but they fail to deliver education systems, meaning those results fade as staff members inevitably change over time. We ensure that proven training systems are installed in your practice. These systems thoroughly develop high-level skills in the critical areas of patient communication, from who answers the phone to hygienists and dentists on the front line. Our installed systems ensure long-term, high-level performance that survives staff turnover and builds lasting equity in your practice. Now, optimizing your internal systems is crucial, but it's only part of the equation. To maximize the practice multiplier, the pipeline needs to consistently be full of the right kind of patients. That is where our sister company, Gold Medal Dental Marketing, comes in. Once your internal systems are dialed in and your bucket is no longer leaking, Gold Medal ensures that every one of those 60 inbound calls is a high-value prospective patient ready to invest in their dental health. It's a fully integrated strategy. World-class marketing feeds into world-class systems. So I leave you with a challenge. Do you know your numbers? Are you answering 67% of your calls or 80%? Is your acceptance rate at 40 or 60%? If you don't know your numbers, you cannot fix them. And we've seen today the mathematically average practice is leaving over $280,000 per year on the table. The only question you have to answer is, are you willing to leave that kind of money or more sitting on the table? You don't have to guess where your practice stands. I invite you to book a complimentary one-to-one strategy call with our team, including me. During this session, we will plug your actual practice data into the practice multiplier. We'll show you exactly where your specific revenue leaks are, how much they are costing you, and outline a clear 90-day action plan to start fixing them. There's no obligation. This is just a conversation that will give you absolute clarity on what is possible for your practice. You can book your session right now using the link included with this episode or go to our website, thechampiondentist.com, and feel free to call us at 877-899-3005. Thank you so much for your time today. At TriVantage, we believe that dentistry should be rewarding, profitable, and enjoyable. We look forward to speaking with you soon and helping you build the practice and life you deserve. Cheers.